Hey everyone, it's Dave here, and a real message of optimism and positivity from me today, because today, for the first time in nearly 2 years, I feel a genuine surge of positivity and optimism, and can see tangible evidence that the tide on this tyranny is turning. I'm going to explain why. I've been keeping a close eye all through this on people, just watching them. I've gone to various different places and I just watch people. I want to see what the levels of compliance are. I want to get a feel for what people are thinking. And most of all, I've wanted to see an outward expression of a population that has changed their minds, or that a significant number of that population have changed their minds. Now, I was just in the shops before in my local area, and I would say there were somewhere between 25 to 40% in all the shops I went in, people not wearing masks. Now, this is great, because what for me it demonstrates is that there's a hell of a lot of people who are finally realising that they're exempt from wearing masks. There are millions of people in this country with asthma and respiratory conditions, for example. So it's great that finally they've realised that. I'm exempt, as you know. I have asthma, so I've never worn a mask because I've got asthma, you see, and I do. But there could be another explanation, couldn't there? It might be nothing to do with that, and I can't speak on behalf of other people, only myself, but it could be, and I think it is. I think people are saying enough is enough. And why do I feel optimistic today? Well, because for the first time since this started, where we have a mandate in place that is immoral and wrong on every single imaginable level, with that mandate in place, there are not just 1 or 2 or 3 people choosing to not comply. There are masses of people. People are starting to rise up. Now, if there was any country in the world that was going to do this, where the house of cards was going to come crashing down, it was England, and I'll add the USA as well. England and the USA, and when I talk about the USA, it's effectively 2 different countries, so the red states in the USA. It was England and the USA, and that, I think, is what's happening. And why is that? Well, I think deeply embedded within the DNA of enough people in those 2 countries is a lingering, and maybe a lingering respect for democracy, for freedom, for civil liberties, and a distaste for fascism. And I think those fires are being stoked as people realise that what they were told wasn't necessarily true. And I also want to say to anybody, because this process of non-compliance, civil disobedience, whatever you want to call it, hasn't just started now. It started right at the start, February, March 2020, in very, very, very small numbers. Those brave souls who right at the start said no. And it needed those courageous souls at the start to start the process of providing social proof to everybody else that what they were doing was acceptable, that what they were doing was representing truth, that they were living free, that they were not going to be coerced, that they were not going to live in fear. So that process started a long time ago, started gathering a little bit of pace about a year ago, and in the last couple of weeks has rapidly accelerated. I know for a fact, I personally have helped to wake up a number of people. I can see the confused looks on people's faces now. I can see they're asking questions. And I can see that finally, people in significant numbers are paying attention to what the likes of me said a long time ago, and what we've been saying for a long time. The penny is dropping with many people. I'm not saying enough people just yet, but I'm very optimistic now based on what I'm seeing. The penny is dropping, that enough people are making the assessment and are having the realization that those conspiracy theorists and cranks, as labelled by the media, all along weren't doing this because they'd been subject to propaganda themselves. They were doing this because they hadn't let the propaganda affect them, or they had disentangled themselves from the propaganda and started to stand up for equal rights for everybody, for the freedoms for the next generation, and above all, for truth. I think people, whether grudgingly or not, in their large numbers now, are realising that. They're realising that the cranks and conspiracy theorists, they were the ones who were standing up for their freedoms and their children's freedoms. They're now seeing that. They're now realising the seriousness of the situation, and they are adapting their views and beliefs, their perceptions, and thus their behaviours accordingly. I just want to finish by saying thanks to everybody so far for all the work you've done with this resistance. As I say, I think the resistance is fierce in this country. It's been a small band of people, but it is fierce, and it is getting more and more fierce. And when I say fierce, not in a fighting sense, nobody in this resistance movement wants to resort to violence, to coercion, to bullying, nothing like that. But when you are in a battle for truth, you will become more and more passionate. And that's what's happening. As the truths reveal themselves to more and more people, it is simply impossible now to ignore. Impossible. People cannot rationalise, they cannot justify, they cannot make sense of what they've been told and what they themselves have sacrificed. The truth's been there all along. What's happening now is more and more people are allowing themselves to see it, and that is because of the brave people who've taken a stand, who've lost their jobs, who've risked their relationships or lost relationships with family and friends. Many don't have children themselves. I don't. Yet standing up for other people's children. Many people have lost loved ones, not because of COVID, but due to a variety of other measures that have been imposed. And I know all too well about that because I've lost my dad. And people are now realising there are some things in life that truly are precious, that truly are priceless, including life itself. I'll speak to you all soon. Bye bye.